I call to order the meeting of the Verona Planning Commission for Monday, August 5th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. We'll begin with the roll.
Harrison,
Here.
Wood,
Here.
Powers,
Here.
Diaz,
Here.
Posey,
Here.
Touche, absent, Hankard.
Here.
All right, 6 is enough for quorum, so we'll proceed. I will move on to item 3, which is public comment. We do have a public hearing regarding the apartment complex at Kimball Lane and the plan development preliminary plan and conditional use permit for the thing on West Verona Avenue. So if you're speaking on those, we would ask you to under the current items. If you're speaking on something else, now would be the time to talk. And honestly, if you were in a hurry and couldn't wait for the public hearing later in the agenda, you could talk now. We're not going to stop anybody. So we're in public comment. If any members of the public wish to speak, now would be the time to do so.
My name is David Lonsdorf. I live at 1717 Beach Road in the town of Verona. I'm going to speak about the proposed Fisher development that I think is third on the agenda. And I appreciate the opportunity to comment on this. I've been waiting for this development to take place for quite a long time. I've been an active volunteer for the Ice Age Trail for about 20 years. And working both with the local Dane County chapter and at a statewide level as a board member and as president of the board for several years. I spent the majority of my over 12,000 hours of volunteer time with the Ice Age Trail volunteering at Prairie Moraine County Park, which is the park right next to the Fisher development, both restoring the park and working on trails in the park. This proposal, if approved, will provide a very important connection for the Ice Age Trail to head out east of Prairie Moraine Park and help to avoid a 2.5-mile road walk that is a very unpleasant part of every hiker's experience in Verona. Currently, if you hike into the park, you can't get out of the park to the east. You have to go back onto County PB and walk about 2.5 miles before you get to the next segment. There's a very narrow area of about 2,000 feet that prevents the trail from being completed, and this development includes about 1,500 feet of that, so most of it. So I support this development proposal for the reasons that it will help complete the Ice Age Trail. And again, I've been wanting that to happen for about the last 15 or 20 years. The Ice Age Trail has worked closely with the city of Verona and with Viridian Homes to make several connections to the Ice Age Trail and to the Moraine Kettles Preserve at the new Viridian development called Woods at Cathedral Point on Range Trail. And I believe that we could do the same thing for this Fisher development. We'd be happy to help the residents obtain access to the county park, as long as the county park says that's okay, and to connector trails to the main Ice Age Trail, and also to help restore the woods to provide residents with a quality experience in the park. So for those reasons, I would support the development and say that we would like to be a part of helping to make it part of the community. But there are two asks that we have for this proposal that we'd like you to consider. The first is to not build the proposed new road across the moraine to the south. The road would cut through the wooded preserved area and slice it in half. A number of old growth oak trees and other vegetation would undoubtedly need to be removed. The fragile geology of the terminal moraine would be greatly disrupted. There'd be disruptions to habitat for wildlife and wildlife trails, and the Ice Age Trail would be crossed by a 30-foot wide road, downgrading the hiking experience. There already is a road across the moraine and the neighboring property of Deer Haven Estates that has a ready-made connection on both sides of the moraine, and I'm wondering, couldn't this be used instead of adding another road for the same purpose? The second request is to move the southernmost row of houses down the moraine to the north. These are the houses that climb up the north side of the moraine and are shown being built on top of a prominent ridge, which is actually a recessional moraine. They would require destroying the moraine in order to build the access street to those houses. They'd also be on a very steep slope with grades over 12% that would likely increase erosion and cause a lot of runoff problems. I think keeping the moraine and the wooded area as intact as possible will greatly enhance the future benefits to the community. So in all, I think this is a good proposal that benefits the community in many ways. I support it and would be happy to help incorporate it into the nearby park and the Ice Age Trail, but I'd prefer to see no road crossing the moraine and a better preservation of the north side of the moraine when the houses are built. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are still in public comment, so if any other members wish to speak, now would be the time to do so.
Good evening. My name is Gary Werner, and I live at 2302 Lakeland Avenue in the city of Madison. Like Dave, I've been involved with the Ice Age Trail, but I've got him trumped. I've been involved for about 40 years, including I was on the team of people who developed the plan for the Ice Age Trail in Dane County back in the early 1990s. That's the plan that has been approved by the National Park Service, the Natural Resources Board of the state of Wisconsin, and the Dane County Board of Supervisors. And that plan, I'm happy to see you have also incorporated a good portion of that planned area in your City of Verona comprehensive plan. The fact that this corridor is approved by all of those other agencies means that land within the corridor is eligible for acquisition at the federal level with Land and Water Conservation Fund money, at the state level from the Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Fund, and at the county level from the Dane County Conservation Fund. I mention this because I think the point that Dave was making, and I will also stress, of preserving the entire top of the moraine, including the wooded area, all of the wooded area on the Fisher property, should be a priority. And if the problem is how to acquire all of that land, I've just given you 3 sources of funding that you can turn to. Lee Clayton and John Attic, who were glacial geologists with Wisconsin Geological Natural History Survey, and who produced this report, The Pleistocene Geology of Dane County, about 30 years ago, commented that the terminal moraine in Prairie Moraine County Park is the best section of the moraine in public land in all of southern Wisconsin. Quite an important feature. One of the characteristics of this section of the moraine is on the western end, over where Highway PB cuts through it, it's a singular narrow ridge. When you get further east in Prairie Moraine County Park, that ridge actually becomes what the geologists called an ice-cored moraine, a moraine that had big chunks of ice in it, which melted out kind of slowly, and so you end up with a double ridge, the outermost portion and then another portion a little to the north of it. That extends on to the Fisher property, and as Dave mentioned, the way the development is proposed, the southern outermost ridge of the moraine is proposed to be preserved, but the northernmost portion of the moraine is where the southernmost loop of road and series of lots is placed. So you would effectively be destroying that portion of the feature. They're also within the area, on the current area of the Fisher property kind of respects that topography and geology. The area of the double-ridged moraine is wooded. The agricultural land to the north on shallower slopes is open. And what I would propose is, and request, is that the development stop at the edge of the woods And in fact, okay, I mentioned I'm a resident of Madison. I've lived on Lakeland Avenue about a half a mile west of Olbrich Park for almost 50 years now. I can see the lake, but I'm not a lake property owner because across the street from me and for the half mile to Olbrich Park, the houses are on the north side of the street and the south side of the street is a park strip, effectively giving not only all of the people who live there access to that great amenity of the lake, but all of the citizens who want to come by, whether they live a block away or we see dozens and dozens of bicyclists and walkers practically every day making the circuit around Lake Monona. I suggest that you have, it's not a water feature, but you have a feature in the Terminal Moraine area here in the city and in the town of Verona, an outstanding amenity that ought to be shared with all of the residents of the area and not just the few that might buy a lot that sits on top of it. So I wholeheartedly support what Dave is suggesting, that of moving the development north and also eliminating the road that would cross the moraine through that portion of the woods. The other thing to note is that portion of woods on the Fisher property is part of the eastern end of a wooded area, an oak woodland, that's the largest one that you have, partially in the city of Verona and next door. A good portion of it's already being protected in Prairie Moraine County Park, but there's this section to the east and another section to the north that's within the industrial park area that both ought to be preserved. And as I said, there is money out there, if needs be, to buy land, so you don't have to try to acquire it all by your fee system. So I'd also want to say, having been involved with the Ice Age Trail as long as I have, and the plan that we put together, there was a lot of talk at the time that maybe we should abandon the Terminal Moraine and go west all the way out to Blue Mound to get away from the urban area. And we consciously chose to put it along the moraine in such a way that it could form a greenway between the city of Madison and the city of Verona, with the thought that doing that would provide much, much greater service to the people who live here. And the long-distance hiker who may come for a day through, he or she will deal with it fine. The people who go out and walk on it practically every day, some of them from right out their back door, that's a better service on our part. And we're asking you, with this potential development, to continue that effort and add one more significant piece, which will help continue Verona to be one of the Ice Age Trail premier trail towns. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We are still in public comment, so if any members of the public wish to speak, now would be the time to do so.
Hi, I'm John Walczak. I am the facilities manager for St. Vincent de Paul here in actually all of Dane County. I'm here to just speak briefly about the project at 511 Verona Road. We as an organization have a bit of a concern of the two parking lots abutting each other, one for the proposed event center and one for our store. For insurance and liability issues, we will not be allowing anybody to be parking in our parking lot. Unfortunately, we're going to be having to put cameras out there, and cars will be towed if they're parking in our lot and they're there for the event center. Having run an event center here in Verona, I know a lot about how people just park anywhere. They're not going to pay attention to no parking signs. They're not going to pay attention to even if we put up a guardrail. So I'm just here. I appreciate them wanting to put an event center there. My concern and our concern for our organization, liability-wise, are cars parking on our parking lot. And we're just not going to be able to allow that. So we'll be putting like I said, no parking signs and cameras up. Somehow, if the project is approved, it needs to be understood that cars will be towed if they're there for the event center, but they're on our parking spots. Thank you.
Thank you. We're still in public comment.
Good evening, Mayor and Plan Commission. My name's Ron Kloss. I'm an engineer with D'Onofrio Kotkin Associates, and I am here tonight representing the Fishers for item number 7 on your agenda. So back to that item. And I just wanted to make a few comments, and we will stick around for that agenda item if you have any questions. But the Fishers are ready to move ahead with this. They would like to annex their land into Verona and develop it as a mix of residential housing. There are things to resolve.
All right, sorry about that. It is 6:52 and we are back in session.
So in your packet, you have a conceptual plan that I developed to give the city an idea what this could look like. And in doing that, I looked at the comprehensive plan and, excuse me, showed road connections both to the tech park as well as lands to the east and to the south, again, following that plan. For utilities, we would extend sewer and water from the tech park to this site. It is going to be in a higher pressure zone, so it will need a booster pump. And there's also a water tower in play here for both this area and the southeast, or the east pressure zone. And so the planning report summed it up pretty well. We need feedback from the city on a number of items. And I'm just going to read those off. Do you support multifamily on this property? That's very important, of course, so we know what the city expects. Do you support a road connection over the terminal moraine if feasible? That's the one to the south. Do you support the city's investment in a pump station to serve the proposed development, which could be done, and that way it could be done before a water tower is even built? Do you support the city's investment in a water tower if needed for this development, which would also serve the tech park and Liberty Park and the southeast zone? There's one more item I wanted to add. The concept plan shows a road connection to County M. If this project moves ahead in the near future, as we hope, we would be connecting to the tech park with an internal city street, but with the size of this project, 112 acres, we think it's important that we also be able to connect to M, because it's unknown when lands to the east would develop. So I'd like the city to consider that as well. There's some members of the Fisher Farm here, and they're going to introduce themselves as well.
How you doing? My name is Tom Fisher. We're part of the Fisher family, and my sister Kelly is right behind me. And we just want to thank you guys for letting us present this and try to get the ball rolling. We've been waiting a long time for this, and just want to thank you guys and see what we can do. And I just want to put a face with the land, so you know who we are. So, thank you
Thank you. We are still in public comment. If any other members of the public wish to speak, now would be the time to do so. Seeing no one else approaching the microphone, we'll move on to item 4, which is approve the minutes from the July 1st, 2024 Plan Commission meeting. Corrections or motions to approve? Commissioner Powers.
I'll move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Powers. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Harrison. Last chance for corrections. Seeing no corrections, all those in favor of approving the minutes from the July 1st, 2024 Plan Commission meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And the minutes are approved. We'll move on to item 5, which is regarding a conditional use permit for an apartment complex located at 861 and 871 Kimball Lane. If we get a brief overview before we head into the public hearing. Mr. Severson.
Yeah, so this is a public hearing held for a conditional use permit to... Start over. Public hearing is being held for a conditional use permit to allow a 20-unit apartment complex at 861 to 871 Kimball Lane. Legal notice was published in the Verona Press. Personal notice was sent to properties within 250 feet, and a sign was posted in front of the subject property.
Thank you. With that, I will move that we open the public hearing on this topic. Is there a second? Second by Alder Posey. All those in favor of opening the public hearing on this topic, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And we are now in the public hearing regarding the conditional use permit for the apartment complex located at 861 and 871 Kimball Lane. If any members of the public wish to speak on this one, now would be the time to do so. Seeing no one approaching the microphone, I will move to close the public hearing on this topic. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Wood, I think. All those in favor of closing the public hearing on this topic, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And the public hearing is closed at 6:57 p.m. Mr. Severson.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting a site plan and conditional use approval for a 20-unit apartment complex located at 861 to 871 Kimball Lane. The site is located in the urban residential zoning district just east of Glacier Edge Elementary School and west of Old PB. The site is currently improved with 2 apartment buildings which were approved in 2005. Each building is 2 stories and provides basement level parking as well as surface parking for residents. A 3rd residential building is being proposed at the rear of the site in an area containing open space and a small patio. The new apartment building will contain 20 dwelling units with 20 underground parking spaces and utilize some of the existing surface level parking. Overall, the entire site is conforming to the minimum required parking and lot coverage. Some of the existing surface level parking spaces will need to be removed in order to satisfy the lot coverage requirements. The Plan Commission provided initial review in May of this year, and comments included support for infill development, a concern for the lack of complementary design to the existing buildings, and support for the overall height of the building. Staff worked with the applicant to revise the building elevations and roof plan to provide a design more consistent with the existing buildings. This included matching materials of the existing buildings, revising the roof lines, going from a more flat roof to a pitched roof in some of the roofs, as well as revising window proportions and spacing to align better with the existing buildings. Staff recommends the Plan Commission approve the site plan with the condition to add a bicycle rack and recommend the Common Council approve the conditional use permit as stated on page 8 of the report.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions, comments, or motions on the conditional use permit? Alder Posey.
I'll just comment, I really appreciate the updated renderings and the better information on this project. I know that that was a big question of ours last time around when we looked at this, so this was really helpful. Thank you.
Questions, comments, or motions on the conditional use permit? Alder Posey.
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan to allow for construction
We're
of...
on the,
Oh,
sorry, we're on the conditional use permit. It's not, at least on the agenda that I have, it's conditional use permit first.
okey
And in
doke.
the staff report, it's the opposite.
Okay, so we will recommend the Common Council approve the conditional use permit to allow an apartment/condominium complex land use at 861 and 871 Kimball Lane.
Motion by Alder Posey. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Hankard. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on this motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of recommending to the Common Council to approve the conditional use permit to allow an apartment/condominium complex land use at 861 and 871 Kimball Lane signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. We'll move on to 5B, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the site plan review for a 20-unit apartment building located at 861 and 871 Kimball Lane. Questions, comments, or motions on this one? Commissioner Powers.
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan to allow for construction of a 20-unit apartment complex building located at 861 and 871 Kimball Lane with the following conditions. The applicant shall add a bicycle rack to the proposed building.
Motion by Commissioner Powers. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Harrison. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on this motion? Alder Posey.
And I'll just add, if for that additional bike rack, I have noticed that we've been able to incorporate some covered bike racks, and more people are using their bike racks year-round, or bikes year-round, so the covered rack would be really helpful. So if that is an option, I'm not forcing on it, but if that's an option, that would be great.
Sorry,
Could you
just,
come up to the mic?
otherwise they can't hear you.
Bill Rangat, the owner of the property. The current two buildings have bike racks underground, in the underground parking, which are used all the time. Is the plan for this if we have the room underneath. I'm not 100% certain yet.
As I said, if it's available and an option, I'm not, tied to it, but I definitely can see it as something that's useful for a lot of people who have been using their bikes year-round, especially as things might warm up a little bit nowadays.
Okay,
Thanks.
great.
Other questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the site plan to allow for the construction of a 20-unit apartment complex building located at 861 and 871 Kimball Lane with the conditions specified in the packet signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. We'll move on to item 6, which is regarding the planned development preliminary plan and conditional use permit for a 112-unit apartment building and 200-person event center located at 509 West Verona Avenue. Before we get into the public hearing, if Mr. Severson could give us a brief overview.
Yes, as the mayor said, this is a public hearing for a preliminary plan of a planned development consisting of a 112-unit apartment building and a 12,000 square foot event center. Legal notice was published in the Verona Press. Personal notice was sent to properties within 250 feet, and a sign was posted in front of the subject property.
Thank you for that explanation. With that, I will move that we open the public hearing on this topic. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Harrison. All those in favor of opening the public hearing on this topic, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And it is 7:04 p.m. and we are in the public hearing. Anyone wish to comment on the development at 509 West Verona Avenue?
Can we, real quick, just to clarify, it is 511 or 509? Because we've got 509 is where the office is currently located, but 511 is the property, correct?
Yeah, it kind of
Just want to make
spans.
sure for the record, we're all clear.
Yeah, 511.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was worried that was going to be a trick question for me. What is the what's the address? Good evening, commissioners. So I'm Connor Nett with Ford Development Group, part of the development team. This project was before you last month on July 1st, and the overall project sentiment was very positive. I would like to address two items that came up during that meeting, one being parking and shuttling, and the other one being acoustics. Ben and Stacy, the operators of the project and the owners of the LOEs, have been very much engaged since that point, and we're able to help provide some helpful comments on that. The first of that being shuttling. The operators currently require shuttling for most of their weddings. They find it works very well. So, after we walked away from that meeting last week, it was kind of a, should we consider shuttling? And that's definitely something that we'll require within our contracts with each event. Weddings greater than 150 people, we're planning on having shuttling, and then conferences greater than 100 attendees will plan to have shuttling. And both of those thresholds are based on the parking study. At when we cross those numbers, 150 and 100, that's when shared parking becomes something that could be needed. So that's how we determined those. And just in general, we're doing everything we can. We'll develop maps, signage, updates, everything showing shuttling route to shared parking locations to make sure that we're event guests know where to go and where not to go. Secondly, being the acoustics. People, some concern being raised with the adjacent residents. Ben and Stacy had shared with us, the operators that is, that they always make sure that windows are closed when they're using amplified music. And in general, the rule of thumb is if the event staff can't hear each other, the music's too loud, which seems like a pretty good rule of thumb. So that's something that they'll make sure they're implementing in the event center as well. Moving ahead, if amenable to the city staff and yourself, we'd likely be coming back with a joint preliminary plan and final plan submittal for review. That way we're getting the most comprehensive view of the whole project and the most final plans as possible. So we're still working to get as many details worked out as possible, but we're excited about the activity the event center can bring to the city and completing this final phase of Sugar Creek Commons. Thank you for your time, and I'll be available if you have any questions.
Thank you. We are still in the public hearing regarding the plan for 511 West Verona Avenue. If anyone else wishes to comment on it, now would be the time to do so. See, no one else. Oh, sorry. I mean, you can if you want to comment. Seeing no one else approaching the microphone, I will move that we close the public hearing on this topic. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Powers. All those in favor of closing the public hearing on this topic, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And the public hearing is closed at 7:08 p.m. Mr. Severson.
Thank you. As was stated earlier, the applicant has submitted a request for a preliminary plan approval of a plan development at 511 West Verona, consisting of a 112-unit apartment building, detached garage, including a conditional use permit for a 200-person, 12,000 square foot event center. Immediately, just for, I'm rehashing things that we discussed at the last meeting, but immediately west of the existing buildings, B, C, and D is where this is going to be located. And immediately east of the subject site is where the St. Vincent thrift store is located. The property is currently zoned suburban commercial, which means multifamily is not permitted in the underlying district. However, the applicant is able to seek an exception through the plan development process. The Plan Commission provided an initial review at their December 2023 meeting and last month at their July Plan Commission meeting. Plan Commission was overly supportive, overall supportive of the event center, but voiced concern for the lack of parking and need for a shared parking agreement. The Common Council shared similar concerns at their meeting and asked that shared parking agreements be in place as part of the conditional use permit. Buildings A and E are the remaining phases of this plan. So you'll see in this overall site plan, buildings B and C are the ones fronting on Verona Avenue. Those are mixed-use buildings. And then building D, sort of at the bottom of the page, is the 100% multifamily apartment building, which was recently completed. This is going as a plan development as well as a conditional use. So the conditional use would be for the event center. So we'll have a plan development review, both preliminary and final. They're seeking a land use exemption for the apartments as well as the detached garage. The detached garage is labeled as Building E at the bottom, kind of the southeast portion of the site, and that'll be for use by JSD. Yeah. There'll be a height exemption of 5 feet, and that'll match the existing buildings elsewhere in the development. And then the parking exemption is for 148 parking stall storage. The staff's comments include, per the zoning ordinance, the subject property is short 148 parking spaces, and the entire development would be 220 spaces short. Shared parking is allowed by code, however, it is requires that the parking spaces that are shared be within 500 feet. So some of the parking spaces that have been suggested to be shared are beyond this amount, so that would just be part of the exception requested. Because of the deficiency in parking, it was suggested that by staff We're good? Okay. So staff had asked the applicant to prepare a parking study. The applicant hired a parking consultant. That scope of study was reviewed by the city's engineer to ensure that it covered the appropriate amount of area and used the correct assumptions. So based upon that parking study, there's 120 space parking shortage at peak times and a 54 space parking shortage on Saturdays during a wedding. So the applicant has proposed utilizing parking in the green and blue highlighted properties in order to make up for the deficiency of on-site parking spaces. The area in red is showing the existing Sugar Creek Commons, that's buildings BC and D. The two hotels labeled or highlighted in green and blue have an additional 13 parking spaces available beyond what's required by code. And the way we get to that number is looking at the parking requirement for hotels, which is 1 parking space per hotel unit. So they, excuse me, the hotels combined have an additional 13 parking spaces. Now, depending on the time of day and day of week, there may be more spaces than that. But if you were considering a full occupancy of each hotel unit, there would be 13 additional spaces. The city attorney has consulted with staff and recommends agreements with the property owners be tied to the property, and that the minimum term of 99 years be in place. The city also needs written confirmation from the property owners with the terms agreeing to the specifications, including the quantity and location of shared parking, and what time of day and day of week will those spaces be available. So because of this additional information being recommended, staff recommends the Plan Commission postpone a decision or recommendation to the Common Council until staff and the city attorney receive further information on shuttling, parking agreements, and evaluation of the expanding the on-site parking and reducing the number of apartment units in the proposal.
Thank you. I'm going to call on myself real quick because I have a few questions for staff and maybe for the applicant. What's our timeline regarding this? Because I know based on state statute, we have to act on certain things that come before us. And obviously, I think delaying to one meeting, it wouldn't hit the 60-day thing. But how long do we have?
I don't think the 60-day period takes effect until a decision's made by the Plan Commission, but I will look into that.
Okay. Just want to make sure we don't inadvertently cause any issues for ourselves. And then I guess my second question then is, just so we're all clear, like, city staff hasn't seen any finalized agreements for any of this stuff.
Correct. And we haven't received any, I guess that's true, but in addition to that, we haven't received any correspondence from the property owners. At the last meeting, there was, during public comment, a comment from one of the hotel operators that they would be in favor of it, but we haven't received anything either verbally or writing from the property owners.
Gotcha. Okay, I guess I'll go into a comment. I agree with staff's recommendation to delay this. I like the project. I still like the project. And I think tonight I could approve 6A, which is kind of the plan development preliminary plan. However, regarding the conditional use, I wouldn't feel comfortable approving it in its current state because there's just not enough parking and there's nowhere for any of the parking to go. West Verona Avenue doesn't have the capacity to handle this. And so while I think the plan to have the hotels take on the parking is a solid one, if there's no agreement, it's not a real plan. It's hope. And I used to work at a place that had in their slideshow for staff meetings that hope is not a plan. So again, I remain generally supportive of this. I can't support it today, though. There's no way. Other comments from the Plan Commission? Commissioner Touche.
I completely agree. Parking is an issue, although I'm assuming that buildings B, C, and D are full. I've been there multiple times after 5 during the week. Crazy amounts of open parking back there. So it's hard for me to be a stickler on it, but I haven't been there 24/7 to know when or if it fills up. But less about the convention center and the impact it has, but more about adding the residents without enough parking for them is my primary thought. The other thing is I just have a side comment of it. I find it ironic that they're putting a convention center in there that is then expecting people to park at the hotels that are next to it when this site was originally set up to be a hotel. Thank you.
Other comments from the Plan Commission? Alder Posey.
I had a similar comment because the note I was actually making was about the parking deficiency actually also impacts the residents. We've been talking a lot about the event center and we have plans for them, and I think it's great that you've brought on the folks that you have for the event center. They know their stuff. I felt really comfortable hearing what their plans are. However, when we're talking about deficient parking, we're talking about somebody being able to take their own groceries up and having to park, across the parking lot. And there's just these simple things of day-to-day life that, this is their home, this is their residence, and they shouldn't be impacted by a short of a parking to, honestly, I feel like the event center is just because we pushed for it. So you stuck it in there. And it's kind of almost like we keep seeing this plan come back to us. It's like a square peg to a round hole, rather than it being the right design for an event center and maybe some sort of housing. I know Commissioner Touche mentioned, do you lose the building E in this plan? How can this actually work with the right amount of parking? You have the space, you have the design, you have the know-how. Like, I keep seeing this. Every time these come up, it's like we're trying to sort of like fit things in rather than just doing it right the first time. And it's frustrating to kind of keep seeing this happen. So I would love to see apartments. I would love to see the event center go well. I want to see the parking, because people need to have places to go when they live there. And if it's an event center, people need to have a space to be able to park. Because it's true. This area, this is the area I represent, we don't have parking. You know, overflow from the high school events goes all along. Overflow from hometown days, overflow from something at the park. It's going to be everywhere. It's just what we deal with. But we need to start having more and more plans for it. And since we're starting from scratch with this, let's have the plan and let's do it right. So hopefully that can come back with the right thing this time around.
Other comments from the Plan Commission? Commissioner Wood.
So I'll echo a lot of what everybody has said. I'm not going to reiterate it. I really, really love this. I would love to see this work. I would love to figure out something with parking. But I know we are limited on space. I also don't want to just see a asphalt island. That's not helping the environment, nothing like that. And so for me, it's kind of, I would be more comfortable had there been actual agreements instead of just kind of wishy-washy. But, so, I mean, I'm still in support of it if we can kind of get some of those final details.
Other thoughts from the Plan Commission? I'll call on myself one more time and just say I want to reiterate that I do like the shared parking a lot. Like Commissioner Wood said, we don't want to see of asphalt, and the shared parking agreements are a good way to make it so parking is used basically continuously. It'd be beneficial to the hotels because it's kind of an in with potential customers, and it'd be beneficial to this site, and because you wouldn't have to build a huge parking lot, and it'd be beneficial to the city. But you know, the agreements on some level need to be in place before it moves forward. Commissioner Powers.
Yeah, I just echo what you have said and what a number of folks have said. I've driven through it a number of times over the last few weeks trying to see the traffic, but as Commissioner Touche mentioned, me looking at it and seeing a bunch of empty spots doesn't justify. There was an expert who looked at it, said there needs to be more parking, and that's their job, so I don't want to question that. So looking at it, it feels like there's a lot of spots, but I agree, as B fills up with actual commercial usage, C fills up with commercial usage, D fills up with more tenants, some of those spots are going to go away, and getting those agreements in place feels like a big part of the deal for me as well.
Commissioner Hankard.
All right, let's provide maybe a counter to this. It was like 50 spots deficient or so on
On a Saturday during a
the
wedding.
more typical case versus the peak.
Right, the 120 space deficiency was during a weekday for like a conference.
Okay. I mean, all right, people are going to have to go somewhere, but I mean, I walk to events all the time. I live right down near Hometown Days, and I see events come and I see events go, and people park in front of my house all the time. And quite frankly, I don't have a problem with it because I live in town. If you want to live in town, it comes with the territory. So is it, I mean, I actually don't know the magnitude of the problem. Is these 50 deficient cars, is that going to make bedlam every time that occurs? Or is it kind of just going to be something that comes and something that goes? So I agree. I think there do need to be agreements, but I also think I'd like to give the situation the benefit of the doubt, and that people can walk occasionally. Might be good for them. Okay, that's what I'll say there. And then on the acoustics front, to your point, Luke, about hope, your comment about keeping it down and closing the windows, I think is a little more based on hope than reality as well. So just, you know, continue to keep that in your mind, the separation and use of the building itself, orientation of doors into your own property, and protecting the neighbors across the street. So please don't forget about the acoustics. It's tough to fix afterwards.
Commissioner Harrison.
I think I just want to reiterate that I'm super happy about this plan. I want to echo Commissioner Hankard's notes of maybe some people can walk and that'll be okay. But because, I mean, we have a lot of places that will do events and people survive. It's a kind of come and go kind of thing. But I do think with agreements in place, that would be really, really great, and just kind of making it more of a plan instead of what the mayor said of hope would be ideal here.
No. Unless someone wants to call you up. All right, not seeing anything.
No, Luke,
Sorry, Commissioner Haggard, sorry.
I'd be happy to hear what the man has to say.
All right, Commissioner Haggard.
I'll keep it very specific to the agreements piece. I guess our intent moving forward would be to have essentially a letter of intent to accompany the parking easement. That'd be the official document that would be signed. And this might be a better question for Lucas and I, but I figured I'd just bring it up. But so come to the next meeting, it won't be signed and recorded at the deeds office. It would be the adjacent property saying, hey, we agree to these terms, we're all on the same page. Attachment to that is the easement that we plan to sign and then record it. So I just wanted to make sure that come next meeting, there's not going to be like a signed document truly recorded, but really just the framework is set with like a signed letter of intent to record, would be the thought process. So wanted to throw that out.
Mr. Sievertson, do you have?
Yeah, I don't think, I think it's reasonable to have the official document signed after it's approved, but I think in advance of that, it would be helpful to have something in writing from the property owners, at least agreeing to general terms. And it can be made a condition upon approval that the final agreements have to be signed by the property owners.
Okay, yeah, then that would be okay with me. I don't know what, I'm seeing other nodding heads.
And it would need to be reviewed by the city attorney as well.
That's probably for the best.
Yeah.
I guess, Alder Posey?
I did have one question for the applicant. How do you intend to prevent people from parking in the St. Vincent de Paul parking lot? We heard him speak earlier tonight, and I feel like that does need to be addressed, because they have mentioned that they will tow people and everything else.
Yeah, I'll just have him stand out there. I don't want to mess with him. I think, they had mentioned putting no parking signs up. I thought that would be even day of events, having no parking signage, sort of the foldable signs, so saying no parking. I do also think the orientation of the building, being a U shape that faces in towards Sugar Creek Commons, kind of turns its back on St. Vincent de Paul, sort of helps with that. It's not like the two parking lots are conjoined in any way. So I want to respect that as much as possible. Anywhere in town, you don't want to use somebody else's parking lot, but we'll try to also do our best in promoting where to park and also showing where not to park.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move that we refer items 6A and 6B to the next Plan Commission meeting. Is there a second? Seconded by, seconded by Commissioner Trichet, I think. Any discussion? I don't remember if that's a debatable motion or not. Anyways, assuming there's, sorry.
There doesn't need to be a motion. We can renotice the public hearing.
I personally prefer, just because I think it's cleaner to have a decision of the body.
Okay.
We'll take it up for sure. Okay.
Okay.
Especially if there is a 60-day timer, I want it on the next agenda. So.
Okay.
All those in favor of referring items 6A and 6B to the next Plan Commission meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. That will be on the next Plan Commission meeting. With that, we will move on to item 7, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the initial review for a residential development located at 6435 County Highway M called the Fisher property. Mr. Sievertson.
Thank you. So the applicant has requested an initial review for a residential development located at 6435 County Highway M. The property is southeast of the current municipal boundary. It's contiguous with the tech park to the northwest. In addition, town subdivision is located to the north and west of the subject property. The proposed site plan shows a mix of multifamily, townhomes, twin homes, condos, and single-family lots. Development, as shown, would require annexation, expansion to the urban service area, rezoning of the property, as well as land division and significant utility improvements. It would be anticipated that extension of utilities, both water and sewer, would come from the tech park. As it stands now, the right-of-way to get down to the property has not yet been dedicated, so it's possible that it would either land would need to be dedicated from the tech park, or an easement would need to be made down to connect the property. The future land use map of the city shows the property as transitional in the, what I'll call the northwest section of the subject property, and residential on the remaining portion. So the land uses shown here are consistent with the comprehensive plan. And also just some follow-up of the two speakers earlier in the meeting regarding the Ice Age Trail. They are showing that as being land to be preserved. Access would be encouraged to be from the tech park, as well as far east as possible due to the limited access along County Highway M. It's the county's preference to have that access point even further east, which actually puts it off the subject property, but acknowledging that the property to the east isn't currently looking to develop their land, encourage them to put it as far east as possible would be desired. Then potentially in the future, once that property gets developed to the east, then that access point could be moved. Trail connecting the site to the Ice Age National Scenic Trail is encouraged. So the questions, because this is initial review, there's no decision that needs to be made or action, but staff is looking for Plan Commission's input on a few different things, including, is multifamily supported on the property? Does the Plan Commission support a road connection over the terminal moraine if feasible? Does the Plan Commission support the city's investment in a pump station if it's only to serve the proposed development? And does the Plan Commission support the city's investment in a water tower if it is needed for the proposed development and will partially benefit the tech park and existing southeast water pressure zone?
Thank you. So feedback from the Plan Commission. Commissioner Wood, and then myself.
So I am definitely supportive of multifamily on this. I actually really love that there is a lot of missing middle in here. I wouldn't mind seeing a reduction either in multifamily or single family and more twin and townhomes. Definitely don't, I'm not a fan of having a road go through the moraine there. And I would also recommend removing that, the houses that would obstruct that view. My concerns with the water tower is, or more so with the pump station, would that be usable by other developments in the future? Or would that literally just be for this forever? Assuming something else is built around it.
Ms. Fisher?
So it benefits a small area. It would benefit this area, and then just another approximately maybe 100 acres, 120 acres maybe to the east. So about half of the pressure zone would be this, I guess.
Okay. Do we have, I'm assuming we have those elsewhere in the city?
This would be much smaller,
Okay.
I think, than some of the other pressure zones. I mean, we have 3 currently in the city. The smallest is, I think, the north pressure zone, but that's still fairly, large and has area to expand. Part of it is that we're bounded on the east by Fitch-Rona Road, so we're getting close to that here. So in some ways, we just won't go further east. So yeah, it's just a small area that can't currently be served due to elevations by the southeast pressure zone. So we need the booster station to boost the pressure into this area.
Gotcha. So, I mean, I am supportive of it. I am hesitant about the water tower and the pump cost. I could just see a lot of residents saying, I don't live there, why would I pay for that? So I could see those being hangups, but otherwise I do support the multifamily. Would actually like to see an increase in the missing middle there. And that's all I have right now.
I'm going to call on myself. I have a quick question for the applicant. I'm sorry, you raised a 5th question during public comment. What was it again? I forget.
It was the connection.
Sorry.
Yeah, I noted that the connection to County M would be important for this, and Lucas has already addressed that.
Okay. Excellent, thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to echo a little bit of what Commissioner Wood said, which is I really like the missing middle stuff, townhomes, twin homes, condos. I have trouble believing it's even real. We haven't seen a condo development in Verona in so long. So I think those are all really wonderful. Multifamily, I'm totally fine with. So those are all good. And I mean, honestly, parts of it could be a little bit denser, especially if it meant more townhomes and twin homes. As far as question 2 goes, I don't think I want a road to go over the terminal moraine. I'm generally in large agreement with both comments from Mr. Lonsdorf and Mr. Werner at the beginning of the meeting. I think the Ice Age Trail is, I mean, it's a national trail, a national resource, and it's something that I feel like I have to support to be good stewards of the land. I would also point out as a side note that I think Viridian has had a lot of success working with the Ice Age Trail Alliance and with their developments. And we also know that, a development or a subdivision that primarily features the Ice Age Trail is a premium subdivision. I think developers can make a lot of money based on environmental features, which, obviously shouldn't be any of our motivating, shouldn't be a motivating factor, but I understand that it is. I'm fine both with the pump station and the water tower as well. I think we do want to see development out here, and it is kind of a little bit tricky and it's a little bit smaller, but I think, especially with the missing middle residential here, I think it's worth it. So in general, very supportive, and just kind of encourage the applicant to work things out with the Ice Age Trail Alliance, because I think that'll be beneficial for the community, and I think it'll be beneficial for the development. Other thoughts from the Planning Commission? Commissioner Touche, and then Alder Posey.
I think Alder Posey beat me, so you can go.
Okay, Alder Posey then.
That's okay. I think overall, I have to say, I had the same reaction where I saw condos on this thing, and I almost yelled hallelujah, just to actually see it on a design and not just listed as multifamily, but actually a plan for condos, because we know people are looking for them. We know people want to be able to purchase and have a home. It's their place to live, not just a rental. It's a place for them to live and to set down roots in our community. It's just not a single-family home. So I do like seeing the twin homes, the townhomes as well. I do think there must be a way to work the property to protect the moraine, as has been requested and mentioned earlier today. So I would hope that maybe there's a way to even rework the plan to work with that and to work with the land that's there so that you don't end up with somebody who also doesn't have a backyard that's completely unusable, because that would also be kind of a bummer for them. So yes, I do support multifamily. I lost my questions. Okay, I talked about the marine pump station. I think it's a challenge, and this is actually my one hesitancy with this, is because we're building a residential area that's isolated, because it's not rural, and we don't have the rest of it to connect to yet, to form more neighborhoods or build, grocery or whatever else we need out there to be able to serve this group of housing. I know it's kind of a, if we build it, they will come situation, and of course, we are working on our comprehensive plan, so hopefully we might see more there. So that would be my one hesitancy with doing the pump station, just cost-wise. But I'm willing to entertain it and discuss it more. And, yep, the water tower sounds like a great plan.
Commissioner Touche.
I'll start with the ones I'm likely to forget. The pump station, water tower, I agree. I'd say the road to the south through the preservation seems unnecessary to me, so I would agree with what feels like the theme here is, please let's not put that road in. Yeah, townhomes, twin homes, condos. After being on the council for 13 years, we approved so much multifamily. I would, in my personal opinion, I feel I would rather have that space used for those kind of homes versus multifamily. I feel like we've got a lot of it here already. I feel like that middle gap is very deficient here, and if this space could be used for that, I would be in full support of it. Other than that, I like what's going on here. Thank you.
Commissioner Powers, then Commissioner Harrison.
I echo the comments from the rest of the commission. I'm not up on the pump house costs, but generally favorable about the rest of the plan here. Twin homes and condos, definitely agree. The one thing, again, echoing everyone else, the road through the preservation seems unnecessary, so I would skip it at all costs if we could. And then kind of echoing some of the comments from the speakers earlier, having some sort of connection between the preservation and the subdivision where it's not through everyone's backyard. So having some sort of green space or dedicated park that blended in with that preservation would be nice. We've done that nicely in some of the other parks like Veterans, where it connects to the rest of the green space, so it feels like a continuation of that park, even though it becomes like a trail or a walking path. So having something like that where it isn't, I have to go through someone's backyard or this tiny trail to get to it, would be very nice.
Commissioner Harrison.
Second with Commissioner Powers of if we could do protect the moraine and also a park or something to make it more accessible to the rest of the community. Love multifamily on this property, especially townhouses, twin homes, condos, bring them all. I am kind of iffy on the pump station also because I'm, as of the plan right now, unsure of where it would be. But the water tower I could get behind. So yeah, those are my.
Ms. Fisher, do we know where the pump station would be?
Yeah, so it would be right on the edge of that tech park property, so kind of between the two properties essentially. So we'd draw off of that pressure zone that the tech park's on, and hence why we'd want the storage in the tower.
Okay,
So they both.
So it would share that tower location.
So that, yep, the tower would essentially be storage for the southeast pressure zone, but that would also, we don't have capacity in the southeast to feed this area, so in order to do this, we'd need that tower.
Excellent, yes.
Other thoughts from Commissioner Hankard? Commissioner, you haven't spoken though yet, so that's your priority.
Carla, just to put it in perspective, is this like a reasonable, it's not $1 trillion to serve two homes. Is it commensurate with what we've spent to service other areas on a house-per-house basis or something to that effect?
I could look and see what we put in the TID for a tower cost. I mean, it's multiple $1 million to put in a tower.
Sure, but we've spent multiple millions on other towers and on other pump stations too. I mean, this isn't necessarily, in your professional opinion, like way out of whack that we're spending 10 times just to get a little water over the hill here.
No, and I think the dual benefit of that tower, I think, is something that certainly we'd like to see some additional storage in that southeast pressure zone too. So, I mean, I think to see the dual benefit would be good for the system.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with the road, yes, at all costs, I'm completely on board. So then the Ice Age folks had a second recommendation, which was to slide some of the development off the hill and just to the north. I'm hearing you guys seem to know a lot more about the demand for housing. Everybody's all excited about this. So if it's within our purview under the rules to allow some more density to the north to enable the developer to slide things up, I'd be in favor of that. More condos, it sounds like everybody wants more of these mixed types, mid-level types. So allow the developer to do a little more than they might otherwise and move that out of that moraine area, it would be my desire.
Alder Posey, then myself. Okay, myself. I just want to echo what Commissioner Hanger just said, in that, yeah, I think in line with public comment, bringing the houses away from the preservation area would be good, and I'd be more than happy to trade density if that lets it happen, just because I think it's better for everyone. Other thoughts, feedback from the Planning Commission? Mr. Sievertson, is there anything else Planning Commission should address on this?
Just maybe where, if the density is increased, because we do have the town subdivision to the north. I mean, to the west is the tech park and some additional. I believe that's Dane County in the dog park. But if there's a preference as to where the density should be, they're showing it kind of closer to County Highway M and the tech park. But if there's any, is that where they should be concentrating the density?
I guess I'll try first and then open it up to other people. I'm fine wherever it fits.
Okay.
Some of that stuff's an engineering thing. I've heard different arguments, like, you should have multifamily near the big roads because it has less congestion within the subdivision. I've heard other people say aesthetically it's better to kind of push it away because it makes it look better as you're kind of driving by. It makes people like the developments more. I don't know, and I'm not 100% sure there's an obvious right or wrong. So
Sure.
to me, it's wherever the engineers can fit it in. But please keep the townhomes and twin homes and the condos if you can. Alder Posey.
My 2 cents on that is actually I'm really open to whatever design works with the land. Because this isn't, I know a lot of times we don't want multifamily at certain spots, especially the 4 stories and above, because you've got a neighbor. We don't have that situation here. The neighbors are pretty good distance away, so we've got flexibility to really play with the land and the design. I personally like to see sometimes that multifamily mixed, or twin homes even, mixed in with single-family homes, because makes it part of the neighborhood, rather than having our chunk over here and our chunk over there and our chunk over there, and it, separates people. So I'm open to whatever design you guys come up with to work with that design there.
Other thoughts on the Planning Commission on Mr. Sievertson's question, or just any other feedback? Seeing no hands, we will be complete on this item. And I speaking for myself and maybe other people, but I look forward to hearing more on this project. With that, we'll move on to item. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 8, which is a discussion and possible action regarding an initial review for a 167,781 square foot distribution center located on Lot 19 in the Liberty Business Park. Mr. Sievertson.
Thank you. Before I forget, I did check with our staff on the 60-day notice, or the 60-day timeline, and if we don't review it next, at the September meeting, we will not be in violation. That being said, if you want to change the motion that was previously made, otherwise, I think it's probably the expectation that the applicant and staff won't have time to review everything before the September meeting, so it's probably most likely going to be October anyway, but just to let the
I think we can proceed, and if we just get an update and then just,
Can always
it's
contin-
like a 2-minute item. and
Continue it.
to the
Yep.
next one.
Sounds good.
Okay. Item 8.
Yes, thank you. The applicant is requesting an initial review for a 167,000 square foot distribution center on Lot 19 in the Liberty Business Park. The property is within the current municipal limits and includes Lot 19 of Liberty Business Park, as well as an adjacent 40-acre parcel to the east. The development review, development would include plan development review as well as land division. As I said, it's already within city limits, it's within the urban service area, so those are two big items that we won't need to cover. The distribution center would operate 24 hours a day. Deliveries to the building via semi-trucks would happen overnight, with delivery drivers operating during the day. Sorting would happen roughly at all hours of the day. Because of the amount of parking spaces proposed and because it's in excess of the city's requirements, the applicant would need to seek plan development approval for the project. Significant landscaping and screening would be expected. However, the landscaping wouldn't likely be shown on any plans until plans are further developed. In general, staff is open to having a distribution center on this property. It's consistent with the Southeast Neighborhood Plan, which allows for distribution center. Staff would like information from the commission as to if they would support a parking exception. So, as you can see on the site plan, there's a lot of parking. The way staff is taking into account parking, we're treating it similar to as we would like a automobile sales lot. So the parking spaces where the vehicles which are being sold are located, we wouldn't count those as required parking or a limit on parking for an auto dealership. Similarly, for all the delivery vehicles which need to be parked on the property, we're not counting those as in our overall maximum of parking allowed. So what we are counting is parking for the employees and parking for the delivery drivers. So of those spaces, they're proposing 440 parking spaces, which will be used for the employees which are working there, as well as the delivery, personal vehicles of the delivery drivers. And that's 272 parking spaces over what our code allows. Right, so the parking exception is because they're proposing more than what our code allows.
Was that everything, Mr. Severson?
That is?
All right. Open it up to feedback from the Plan Commission. Alder Touche, then Commissioner Touche, then Alder Posey, and then myself.
Does staff have concerns on this?
I think it's a lot of parking. There are ways to mitigate that. We would want them to see a lot more landscaping, not only surrounding the property, but within the property, to make to lessen the impact, the visual impact of the parking spaces. Also, just the amount of heat that a parking lot can produce. the more trees you can have, the more tree canopy, the less of an impact that's going to make. And also, this isn't like a shopping mall where the tenant needs a lot of visibility. So it's not going to be detrimental.
It's pretty obvious to me what's going on here. I mean, is it a problem if I say what I think it is?
Depends on what you're going to say.
Well,
If
I know.
you Google the developer and
Okay.
you Google what they're doing, it's pretty obvious what's happening here.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't,
I know, but,
Who the app-
but that does give you context. It's a last mile delivery center
Right, exactly,
without saying the
yes.
user. So last mile, so you have drivers bringing their cars there, park their car, picking up a delivery vehicle, dropping off packages. So having, I mean, you almost need 2 spots per person because they aren't going to park their car where a truck is.
Ye-
So and this developer has developed a lot of these last mile places. I think that's a valid question, at least to ask back to them. What is your customer experiencing, or maybe even these developments where these things have landed? Are they half full? Are they 100% full? What does it really look like? Because, I mean, when you look at the square footage, it's pretty obvious what they're doing here.
Yep.
And I'm sure they've got some really good data on what they need. Thank you.
Alder Posey, then myself.
So mine actually is kind of similar to that. So a similar facility happens to be in the Sun Prairie area, to be unnamed. And a recent drive-by led to seeing a whole bunch of vans not inside the lot, but parked along the road. So that's a little confusing if there's enough parking inside this. So, and when you're looking at distribution center during holiday season, when you're looking at that side as well, will this end up being overflow into the rest of that tech park area and kind of where it connects to? If they're doing enough parking, then great. I don't have anything against having this distribution center as long as we're prepared for the traffic flow and as long as we're, as a community, prepared for, the sounds of trucks backing up at night. And, we have hotel not far from there. And I think that's really the only one that would be overnight because it's not, residential side, anything else that's over there that wouldn't be interrupting. But that's what we'd be dealing with all the time, is just a constant flow of in and out, in and out, in and out. And so, like I said, I don't necessarily have anything against it. I just want to, make sure we're ready for the parking and the travel and the amount of cars coming in and out and the amount of vans and the amount of delivery trucks, especially if the trucks are coming in overnight. So, which could, lessen the challenge. We have Costco over there, and we have other things that get deliveries, so I guess, like I said, I mean, maybe if everything's running smoothly over there, this won't be too huge of a change, but I'm kind of in an I don't know, and I'd love more information on that side, and how that's going for those, but I'm definitely concerned about how much parking, because we do so much to lessen the level of asphalt in this town. So looking at this was kind of shocking to see. So anything that we can do to, again, canopy it, or, I don't know, is there an option to do some sort of a, 2 or 3 level parking, ramp for employees or for the vans or whatever it might be? What options are there to lessen that? So, thanks.
I got myself. I'm just going to say, I don't think I would be ready to grant an exemption to the max parking rule. Ultimately, to me, it's, I don't really care who the user is. I care how it's being used. And I think that, I just don't think that this project would justify an exemption to the rule. I don't necessarily see the gain to the community that says, well, we have this rule in place for a reason. However, the benefits to the community will be so great that it makes sense to grant an exemption. I do have concerns about traffic in the area as well as pollution, just because not everyone's using electric vehicles, and I think it could add a significant amount of pollution to the area as well. So I guess I haven't made a final decision, but I would put myself in the very skeptical camp. I got Commissioner Wood, then Commissioner Touche, and then Commissioner Harrison and Commissioner Powers.
It's a lot of asphalt. I definitely would not be ready to give an exception for that. My biggest question is what happens if the tenant of this turns over and the next tenant doesn't have that many delivery vehicles? Now we just have a land of asphalt, and all I can think of is Oscar Mayer on the east side, and you drive past and it just looks horrible because now obviously it's not maintained. Whole other thing. I think I would want to see either a reduction in parking or kind of like what Alder Posey said, look into alternatives as far as whether or not that is a 2-story parking garage, whatever it is. I would say do it right the first time versus just throwing down the cheapest asphalt we can. Because, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of extra heat. So less parking, more landscaping, all of that.
Commissioner Touche, then Harrison, then Powers.
This is tough because we, without saying who the eventual tenant will be, just recognizing what their business is volume, right? And yeah, the heat is definitely a big deal. Thank goodness we're not on the West Coast, but there's still a lot to reflect. I know there's alternate pavements that mitigate some of that, even coatings. The Oscar Mayer comment, I think, is valid, but I think this can be true for, you could put Epic in that same bucket. So big, so much air, if Epic goes under, it's a lot of vacant buildings. It'd be like a Motorola in Illinois, where there's a ton of vacancies there. I mean, that's a challenge of any business that comes in. I suspect they're going here because they're trying to be in the southwest corner of Dane County to cover deliveries here. If they don't go here, they're going somewhere else. But, frankly, a parking structure would be fantastic. Stack them, stack the employees. The vans would probably have to sit out. The beeping, the backing up really scares me quite a bit. Frank, it's a lot of activity. Can Wayland Road support this much activity? Getting on and off the highway? Definitely a traffic study. I'm just thinking about the volume of vehicles coming and going constantly. I mean, I track my packages pretty feverishly, and I'm bitterly disappointed when they get delayed. But the amount of times you see them stopping, 4 in the morning, get delivered here, picked up at 7 in the morning, moved on to the next location, that's a lot of movement. So kind of scares me. At first I was excited, and now I'm a little nervous. So I think the parking's going to be a hard one to fix without asking people to park on Wayland or some other location. Right? It's jobs, 300 jobs. And these are okay paying jobs. It's jobs. It's a lot of jobs in our area, which we're at that, I'll say, pay level, we don't have much of here in Verona. So I think there's some add there. Thank you.
I got Commissioner Harrison, then Powers.
Kind of just going to echo what other people have said, but I do think that's more asphalt than I'm willing to support. But I do like the parking structure idea. And to echo Commissioner Woods, less parking, more landscaping, or less asphalt, more landscaping for sure would be my vote.
Commissioner Powers.
Yeah, I would echo I was taken aback when I saw the amount of parking spots. It would be very difficult to drive past. Obviously, screenings and landscaping would come into play, but still, that is a tremendous amount of parking. I agree, stacking the parking would be seems to be the best solution from our standpoint. Obviously, there's a cost to that, but I would imagine if the company, whoever it might be, who has the cash flow to buy a 170,000 square foot building, might be able to stack a parking garage, might help the ability to make it look a little bit better in the area, and then also not have so much ground cover that is just concrete. I also worry about the traffic on Wayland. It is not that great of a road, and this would be a ton of, not to diminish our city's ability to do the roads, but it's not a very big road to have all the delivery vehicles that this would clearly necessitate with as many parking spots.
Other feedback from the Plan Commission? Commissioner Hankert.
So Commissioner Wood mentioned, what happens if there's a change in tenant. You can put in a condition of approval, like a decommissioning plan, where they would have to set a bond and have enough money to rip out however many parking spaces to bring it back down to normal levels. So that's one way to get that to that. Hypothetically, I might have worked on a few of these projects in my professional life, so I've seen the designs and I know the flow. They generally don't want to back up and beep beep all night because that's inefficient for them, so they do a pretty good job with that. And you can get white noise backup alarms on these fleets. The city of Verona uses them. So there is a fix to a degree there. I agree with Commissioner Touche that this level of pay job is probably a nice add to the mix in this area. And I totally agree with the Wayland Road comment, that Wayland, you were being kind. You're going to have, so the semis, you'd want a traffic study, you want to know how are the semis coming off the highway, you want a dedicated route, maybe that's best for everyone. And then I suppose the trucks are going to scatter to all directions. And so to within a certain radius of this place, Wayland would, I think, need some help, and maybe, I guess we're getting out of our jurisdiction, but Fitch-Verona or whatever. The roads and the traffic is clearly a concern for this facility. That's all I have. Thanks.
Other feedback from the Plan Commission? Mr. Severson, did we cover everything?
Yeah, I think it's noted about the amount of parking and the concern regarding the amount of parking. Also, the applicant is here, if anyone wanted to ask a question of the applicant. In terms of if the parking were to be reduced in a certain area, we have farmland to the north, to the west is the business park, to the east is undeveloped land, which is currently within city limits, most likely intended for residential, but it's kind of up in the air at this point. But if parking was to be reduced, is there like a preference as to where that would reduction would come out of?
Thoughts from the Plan Commission? Commissioner Wood?
Anywhere. I will ask the applicant, is a parking garage something that would be feasible?
Well, thanks, everyone. My name's Kyle Schott with Ryan Company, so I represent this development. Historically, they have shied away from parking ramps, not to say that 100% have not done it. It's primarily due to just the timing of the time that you're adding and safety concerns. And I'm just going to hold on the safety just for a second, because what you see here is very specific separation of parking, where you have to the north of the building directly, that's the associate parking, so that's cars only. To the west of the building and to the east of the building, you have the van parking. And those queue up and load into either side of the building underneath an awning. So there is an awning in that darker gray area. And then you have the truck parking to the south. safety is one of their one of their biggest concerns, so that's why they look at it this way. So parking ramps in general to them, they see that as more of a safety concern than anything else. Not to say that they can't do it, but we will look at it, we'll take the comment and see what we can do. I do have a lot of information as it relates to the flow of all of this and the timing of all of this. If you'd like me to get into any of that, if you have any questions, that's up to you.
Yeah, I guess would it be possible to just send that along to Mr. Severson and then he could forward it to the Plan Commission? Because at least me personally, I'm not going to understand it verbally.
Yeah.
If I see it on a map, it'll make
Yep.
sense to me, but if you explain it to me, it's not going to make any sense.
No problem.
Was that your?
Does that answer your question? We'll look at it, and historically, they haven't done it in practice normally, but I know that they do exist, but those more exist in urban areas where we've gone vertical with the building itself, multi-story, where the traffic flow or the parking deck is a part of the building.
Gotcha. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Alder Posey.
Yeah.
So can you clarify, you said they don't want to do it for safety reasons. We happen to have a lot of parking ramps. You just don't see them as you drive by, several stories deep even in our town, or city. Can you explain to me why safety is the reason they haven't gone with the
It's safety
vertical
because
ramp?
it's a mix of personal use vehicles as well as the vans. So the size of the vehicle kind of is part of that. And in addition, what they want to do is put in all the infrastructure for electric vehicles. So the plan is 100% of these vans become electric in the future. So all the infrastructure is going into the ground to accommodate that. That's better done on surface lots than it is in the parking ramps. But to the safety thing, it's the mixture of personal vehicles and client-owned vans. So they see that as, that's just part of the fact that bigger vans, insurance, all of those things. It's not a no, it's just where they're able to do it, which is a lot of places they've been successful with the surface parking. That's what they've chosen to do.
And I just wanted to clarify, I guess, my conception, because I had actually thought about that, because I know that probably the vans we're talking about are a little bit taller Sprinter-style vans. And so my concept that I had when I suggested the parking ramp concept was more for the personal staff vehicles. It's great to hear that setting up that electrical infrastructure works. I mean, obviously, anything, if there is a way to design a parking ramp specific for those vehicles, that'd be great. But what I was thinking was we could definitely lessen the amount of space taken up by that staff parking for their personal vehicles by stacking it, was the thought.
Yeah, and the staff parking, when we're talking staff, when I say that, that means the folks that are going to be working in the facility. So that's the parking directly to the north of the building. The others it's a 1-to-1 ratio, really, where the personal vehicles come in, they park next to the van. That's the intention, get in the van, and then go queue they go queue to get loaded up. So they're coming in. Really, the Wayland access, the intention, at least how we've laid it out, is that access is being accessed by the associate parking or the folks that are working in the building. You're right, the vans are going to kind of scatter based on where they need to go. When you're talking the trucks, we're talking not 150 trucks, we're talking like 30 probably a night. And so the intention, they're bringing in packages already packed. They're coming in, everything that is received goes out pretty much the same day. You're not storing anything. So that's about 30 trucks that you're going to see at night.
Commissioner Touche.
I'm glad you're here. So just to be clear, so There's 3 sections. The 2 outer, essentially, there's a parking spot for the delivery vehicle and a parking spot for the driver of that vehicle right next to each other.
Yes, and the other thing to think about here, there's, they have to do some training, new drivers that come in, so there's a number of stalls that are dedicated for that area in order to do some level of on-site training there. They're also sized for peak times, so when we're talking about, basically Thanksgiving to New Year's, they size this facility appropriately for that. I'm trying to think of anything else parking related, or just, the overall flow, which we'll give you a map that kind of shows you exactly how these vehicles are moving and the times. They leave the facility, drivers start showing up about 9 a.m. They start loading about 10. They go out in 20-minute fleets of about 20 vehicles. And that happens from about 10 a.m. till noon. They do not come back to this facility until about 8 o'clock or 8 to 10 o'clock at night. That's purposeful to miss the peak traffic periods around the area. But then they do have shift work that are about 10 hours. And those folks are coming in at 9 o'clock, 1 o'clock, I want to say 6 o'clock, and 10 o'clock at night. And that's just for the associate parking area. But the van traffic, they leave during about a 2-hour period during the day. They come back during a 2-hour period at night. Otherwise, they are out on their routes.
So it feels to me that the associate parking is the only really spot that could be stacked, right? That because of the vans, the Sprinter vans, or whatever the Electra versions are. Yeah, I could see the challenges of trying to stack those. I would be very interested in, heat was brought up. I don't think we can do much about the aesthetics of a lot of asphalt. I would be very interested in some greenery that kind of masks it and hides it a little bit better. I think we have to find a compromise, because I don't think we can get away from the amount of vehicles you need or expect to have in here.
Yeah, what would occur there, they have their wish list, right? Of this size building equates to this size packages, that equates to this many delivery vehicles. So really, the building would probably shrink. I don't know the metrics off the top of my head. If you take a parking spot, what that means to the overall building size, but that would be what they would run. We would run all those scenarios to see what works best operationally for them.
No, that makes sense. I'm sure they have a formula for that. But I especially just thinking, driving past Wayland, seeing a lot of parking, seeing a lot of vans there. And unless it's between Thanksgiving and New Year's, it sounds like it may be a lot of vans without, and not being used. I don't know how you guys use that or use rentals or whatever, but, yeah, that's, if you can help with the heat absorption of that much asphalt, I think it might be more tolerable. At least for me, it will be. It's a little more screening, I think, is probably a safe statement. I would love to stack the buildings, but recognizing even those vans navigating, just watching them try to do a Y-turn in the road is interesting sometimes. So, thank you.
Commissioner Powers.
Recognizing you've done this in a number of places, I'm curious, have you had other areas that have stacked on the facility parking, stacked where the drivers who will come in and park currently next to their truck, have you stacked those drivers and had them walk to their truck or get shuttled to their truck via other vans? So stacking, instead of having 1-to-1 in the outside lots, having 3 tall essentially in the north lot there, and then you could cut in half the size of your 1-to-1 lots on the sides, if that makes sense. Obviously, you lose the efficiency of, I get out of my car, I get right in my truck, and I leave. But you could certainly, they could walk or get shuttled to their trucks, potentially.
Yeah, so for Ryan Companies, we have not done that scenario. However, that doesn't mean that we can't look into it and ask the question. When it's a pretty sizable site, so it's just that concern of what does that travel look like from the personal vehicle to the van? Is it safe? Is it, they're going to look at efficiency and things like that, but that
Sure.
doesn't mean that we can't research it. And
There's a large company here that shuttles people all over a very large campus, and it is definitely doable on a much larger scale than what this is, especially with the large vans that they have on staff here. They could probably make it work.
I have one more comment, I'm sorry. I did Google while we were listening. There are quite a few complaints about peak season and parking around warehouses. So as much as I agree that it's a lot of pavement. We might be shooting ourselves in the foot if we ask them to reduce the number of spots, but I hadn't considered shrinking the building and its capacity, but I think we need to recognize that they know what they need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, and I don't know if we're allowed to say I would be on board with the increasing the parking spots if they were stacked as opposed to one flat, very large lot, or 3 flat, large lots. So I understand that as a company, you probably figure out exactly how many parking spots you need to pull off this large of a building, but having the ability to stack some of them where you're not parking side by side could mitigate my concern about the need to go up in parking spots.
I guess I'll call on myself for a real quick comment. I guess if we're worried about heat from the asphalt, if you put solar panels over the parking lot, I think that would help, and that would be a positive good. Last chance for question. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Ranker.
If I may?
Yeah.
Perhaps you've thought of this, but it seems like a pretty simple solution. Instead of every driver gets 2 spaces, you arrive, you back your van out, you pull your car in, and you get back in your van, and then don't you only need 1 spot per?
Yeah, I mean, with that scenario, operationally, it's making it work for their business, if they can do that. You're bringing in a car that doesn't have a space, that's sitting in a drive lane, and then backing out. So there's operational concerns that are then tied to safety and everything else to see if we can make it work. That's not to say we can't ask the question and think through it, to see if operationally there's a way of reducing the overall parking commitment here.
I knew you were going to answer that way, because it's not my first rodeo, but, and fair enough, safety is always a concern, I get it, but these guys, men, women, are at least at some point trained professionals in backing out, and they move this van all over the city all day long. So, yes, there's a small operational hit to you, but to reduce the parking by half, just to have somebody quickly get in their van and move a vehicle. I move vehicles in and out of my driveway all the time. I mean, it's not a big deal. So anyway, I hope you take that up the chain and think about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Alder Posey.
So first, I want to really thank you for answering all these questions, because
no
I
problem.
think this size of a facility is something we're all learning about today. I'm really actually excited to see what might come out of this conversation, because I'm sure we're not the only community having these sustainability conversations, whether it's adding solar panels and dual kind of, well, if we're going to have that much parking space and that much flat ground, why not just cover it with solar panels? So I'm interested to see, because I can assume that the company might be interested for all these communities going forward. Maybe this could be the model that says, hey, are you concerned about sustainability? We can drop this in and it looks like this. So happy to kind of keep working with you, because we know that that's important to us in our community.
Yeah. And obviously for them, sustainability and looking to the future, being carbon neutral is a focus. And again, that's a plan that's, a date out in the future. It's just when are they going to start looking into it? Now, all of those asks obviously have significant dollar amounts tied to them. So that's any ask that we put to them is going to have a cost-benefit analysis, and it's going to be a yes or a no. And then it's a yes or a no from you guys. So we understand it, and I appreciate these comments because it starts the conversation of what can we do in addition to what we're showing you. So each of these points is very well taken, and we'll converse and see what we can do to either reduce parking, add sustainable elements that currently aren't shown on the plan. I will note that the buildings are always built structurally to support solar panels, because that's something that they're looking at in the future as putting on to all of their buildings, not necessarily in the parking lots, but on top of the building structure.
Commissioner Haggard.
Sorry. Thank you for your time. One more quick question. Just to point out, back to my crazy plan, you said this was designed for peak, which Thanksgiving to Christmas-ish,
Yeah.
3 months a year.
It's probably, call it Hollow Thanksmas. You know?
Okay, sure. So the rest of the year, you wouldn't particularly, if you had a reduced parking set, you wouldn't have to be doing the shuttle of which I spoke, right? At least not every driver.
Yep.
Just pointing that out when they run the cost benefit upstairs.
Yep,
All right.
understood, thank you.
Other feedback from the Plan Commission? All right. Well, thank you, everyone, very much.
Thank you.
With that, we will move on to item 9, which is reports and comments from the Planning Department. Mr. Severson.
Yes, update on the comprehensive plan, the task force comprehensive plan.
Is your mic on?
Thank you. Updates on the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan task force will be meeting on Wednesday of this week, actually, to review the proposals we received from our RFP that was sent out. We received 7 responses, so decent response. It's not the 20 I received for a previous project, which was kind of overwhelming. So it's a good number. I think we've got a good mix of qualified applicants. So we'll be meeting on Wednesday to review those and hopefully create a short list and then be doing interviews. I think we had that tentatively scheduled for September 17th. That's it.
And there was also a note about the next meeting, or on the agenda? Or are we still on?
For the Plan Commission?
Yeah.
No updates on that in terms of new cases.
Gotcha. I'm just saying on the agenda, it says next meeting is on a Tuesday.
Oh.
I don't know if you want to mention that or not.
Yes, sorry. Sorry. Yes, because of the Labor Day holiday, it'll be on Tuesday. Yep.
Just want to be clear with everyone.
Yep, thank you. And I'll send out, sorry, I'll start sending out, I'm going to start sending out reminders. So tomorrow I'll send out a reminder, calendar invite, so all of you can add that to your schedules.
Awesome. Any questions for Mr. Severson? All right, we'll move on. Item 10, adjournment. Motion by Commissioner Touche. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Powers. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And we are adjourned at 8:30 p.m. Thank you, everyone.